This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Memories and recollections are a dual-edged sword. The fondness of a grandparent, the encouraging words of a mother, or a great achievement all warm your heart and fill your soul. Remembrance can also bring about regret. For a short time, many are able to repress damaging or harsh memories from their past. Only the good shines through, and we begin to see through rose-colored glasses. But eventually, the horrors of regrettable remembrance will poke through in unhealthy manners. Total recall can be the path to healing, changing the narrative of forgettable moments and repurposing them to become a strength. Rather than forgetting, we embrace our past, both good and bad. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failace, and welcome to Season 4 of the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. Follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome back one of our most special guests in the world, and that's Clark Fredericks, to talk about the suffering of forgiveness. If you remember, Clark was in on episode 89 to talk about the suffering of revenge, so it's a natural progression that we talk about the suffering of forgiveness.
And Clark, do me a favor. Don't piss me off this time because I'm not in the mood for your shit today.
Here we go. Starting already. You know, they'll be able to see that probably.
You were in that lawsuit, weren't you?
I was.
He's one of those latch-on guys. You know, he hears money out there. Let me go get him.
Even the Boy Scout lawsuit isn't off bounds for him?
Nah.
Holy hell. People said to me last time, why didn't you smack that guy around? And I came in here determined to smack Mike around.
No, I went like this, and Clark said, I'm with you.
All I know is when Clark started going, my foot hit the ground because I'm like, this guy's going to destroy the fucking studio.
I was checking the window over here.
This is going to be a wild episode, but before we get into it, let's get into our marquee sponsor, and that's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police, but we do trust them, so go to toyotahackensack.com. Let them find you a car. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Clark, we take a question from our audience. This week's social media question comes from Steve the Pet Peeve. What do you see as your power?
Well, my power.
Curls? Bench press?
It's everything I've overcome. I've survived. I survived eating poisonous mushrooms at age 4.
Wow.
Yeah. I survived open heart surgery at age 6. Life or death. Had a $50 size hole in my heart that I was born with. I survived childhood molestation. I survived rape at age 12. I survived my next door neighbor, who was like a brother to me, committing suicide when I was 17. I survived my 80-year-old grandmother getting raped and murdered down in Naples, Florida.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I survived drugs and alcohol more than, any rock star could dream of doing. I survived having a hit put on me by the mob for gambling debt. I survived my father's death. I survived finding my brother dead on our kitchen floor just a few months ago. I survived murdering the animal who raped me. I survived putting a knife through my hand. I survived going to prison for 5 years. I survived countless other really, really close friends' suicides over the years. And I've survived failure upon failure upon failure. And my superpower, or my power that you ask about, would be how I've transformed from all those things creating a victim to no longer being a victim, to using all of that for strength. You can use all the pain and trauma in your life for destruction, or if you can harness that pain and trauma, you can really use it for construction and become a force for change in the world. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Use it for construction instead of destruction.
Yeah. Did I say it wrong?
You're basically
No, you said you use it for construction. Yeah.
Yeah,
use
yeah.
it for construction instead of destruction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you're saying.
You basically stated the mission statement of this show, because that's how Mike and I have gotten here to this show. We've used our pain and our trauma to construct where it used to deconstruct us really bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Me too.
We ought to think about changing. That was rough. I mean, we got to think about changing the name of the show. Mike, what do you think? What's your power?
And it's really what Clark said. I mean, I believe my power is me. My power is my will to keep moving forward. I mean, we've all been through some shit.
Right.
And if you don't have that love for yourself or that will to keep moving forward, I mean, to me, that would be my power.
I think my power is my ability to connect, not to connect with people. And it's not connecting people to people through your strength. It's connecting through your weaknesses.
Right.
If you're able to show your vulnerability, it really brings, that's when people start to listen. So if I were to sit here and tell you that, hey, listen, I was in the gym today and I put up 315 for 15 reps and all that stuff, which I didn't. I'm 49 years old. Those days are long gone. But if I were to tell you that, you'd be like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's nice. And then you get into the masculinity thing where it's like, oh, yeah, well, I put up 315 for 16. And then you start going one up and everybody. But the minute you open yourself up, Clark, and you say, oh, I survived childhood rape at the age of 12, all of a sudden people go, really? Oh, my God. And now people start to listen to your words. And your words have much more power after you open up your vulnerabilities.
Agreed.
So if you're born to like millionaires and you try to do this show, where everything was given to you your whole life, who's really going to take you serious?
Right. You have to have been there, but you also have to own it as well. And that's how I see your power, Clark, is you own it. But that ability that I have to lay my heart on the table, because nobody's ever going to judge me as much as I judge myself. So once I was able to do that, that's when I really started to connect to people. And thankfully, I have this group of friends now that are really close that I can call on when I need them, and they can call on me when they need me. I'm that person that says, when you need me, call me, and that's not just me saying it. I will do it. I will move stuff around at the detriment of my own family sometimes.
I mean, like you said, though, I mean, you connect with people at your weakest level, and that's what it's really all about.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, on Instagram, when I have a post I like, I'll boost it sometimes, to try to gain followers. And I don't know, it was over a year ago. I boosted a post, and some dude from Texas, reached out, and he's like, I could never find inspiration in you. You murdered somebody. And I'm like, hey, that's your prerogative.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
In order to have a message, you have to come through a mess. And I go, that's why people find me inspirational, is because I came through the biggest mess anybody could ever do.
What's the first 4 words of message? Mess.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Yeah. So the dude totally. And look, not everybody's going to be a cheerleader of Clark,
Yeah.
I love the internet trolls. I actually laugh at them sometimes.
Feed off of them.
And because they just want attention. They're just trying to grab your stuff. And every once in a while, I'll give it to them. I'll say, they're like, oh, you're a crybaby or whatever, and I'll say, well, you obviously didn't listen to the episode, because if you would have heard, it's not about that. And that just feeds them on, and then I'll start doing really passive aggressive thing, like put in there like last word, and then they'll come back and tell them last word, just so I get the last word. That's all I want to do. So Steve, the pet peeve, thank you so much for sending that in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. So the airing date was September 22nd, 2022. We get this guy that was just this weird meeting in here, and he tells us a story that blows our doors off.
Yeah, we talk all the time about, like, when we come in here, like, our ride home is our decompression time.
Yeah.
Me and Kevin will usually call each other and say, like, what'd you think? I think it was a silent ride home.
I didn't sleep that night.
You had told me that.
We just went home and, I mean, I just stared at the road the whole way home going.
I mean, both you guys reached out to me, afterwards, and then the day after, and then the week after, and you still reach out to me now, and that's why I came back here.
Well, you're a friend.
Well, that's it, and I rewatched, the clip of like where I'm going into the murder.
The most popular clip on TikTok that we have, by far. I still get comments about it a year later.
You know, I started doing EMDR therapy. And EMDR therapy is to like process your trauma
and rewire your brain. Gotta do it as well.
And my trauma has just been floating around in me, and I relive it all the time. Like when I do a motivational speech or when I do a podcast, I go back to that. And when I saw myself on your podcast talking about the murder, I am back in the house. I am there as I'm here, and you were like, oh, holy shit, bro. I might have to like stand up and control this guy.
What Dennis said next was going to predict what I was going to do, or however you put it that day.
Yeah.
It was the first time, and your episode was 89. It was the first time in 89 episodes where I actually became not concerned for my own safety.
No, he was concerned for my safety.
That I was actually concerned that you were going to let that regression take over you. And
the veins were like popping out in his neck and everything. And you could tell that you were reliving that moment.
Yeah, man.
Right here.
Because of your episode is why I do my social media the way it's done for our show. Because that pulling those clips out of there were so many of them. And I used to do one clip for our show, for our whole show. Because of your episode, now it's a clip for each section.
Right.
Because there were so many of them, I'm like, yeah, this is what it's supposed to be. So your episode not only evolved us as human beings, but it evolved the way we put our show out there. And it was one. I don't want to draw away from this show because I want people to watch this show, but watch 89 first. It's a nice little precursor.
Right.
You know, why don't you give our audience a little bit of a short recap, the quick 5-minute version? I know you're.
You know, I was molested by my Boy Scout leader, and he was a lieutenant in the sheriff's department. You know, most predators have a position of authority, and that's what sustains them to do what they do. You know, it's not the troll under the bridge, you know, that grabs a kid. You know, it's somebody you know and trust and love,
hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, man, and
he's well respected in the community.
Oh, absolutely. Even after other victims came forward, there's still people that just like, oh, Dennis would never do that. No, yeah. Dennis was just such a great guy. You know, whatever. You know, that's what they do. You know, they went over the victim. They went over the victim's family. They went over the community. They need that whole support network. And so people will be like, never, could never be him.
And that's how he got away with it so many times for so long.
Yeah, 40 years plus, man.
Was there ever any women victims of him?
No.
So it was strictly guys.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I was wondering that because he's a pedophile, but he's a pedophile for boys. It doesn't make it better. I was curious.
Yeah, there's some that you know go any child, you know, and then there's others that stick strictly to girls or strictly to boys.
And then you get put in the prison that he was working at, which is bizarre.
Yeah, when I talk to people, you know, who think their life is over and they're down and out, and oh, how can I ever come? I'm like, look, I was arrested for murdering a lieutenant, and I was put into the jail where he roamed the halls for 27 years. Yeah. And like, it can't get worse than that. Like, come on. You know, but I stayed in the belly of the beast to get tried there, even though I accepted a plea deal. But my lawyer wanted me to stay there because people talk. So the prosecutor is going to hear stuff from cops or whoever who knew rumors about him. And that's what happened. Rumors started circulating and, victims started coming forward. And, I was originally, for 3 years, I faced life in prison, you know. And I took a plea deal to second-degree manslaughter and got 5 years. The judge gave me the minimum, you know, to his credit. He did that.
It's a hard thing because I understand why you took the plea deal because you did it. I mean, there's no bones about it. You did the crime, but there were some extenuating circumstances behind the crime that nobody can possibly imagine.
Right.
Could it be passion provocation? I don't think that would tie into this.
Well, that's what we ended up going with. And that we originally started with diminished capacity. And after I did my psych eval, you have to do a psych eval with someone for the defense, and then the prosecutor has to have a psych eval by their psych. And it was actually his psych that came up with passion provocation. He goes, Clark fits into all the 4 categories of passion provocation.
And that prosecutor probably went, oh, shit.
No, we had already, had a deal for the plea deal. This was after we went to court for me accepting the plea deal.
I think one of the things we didn't get into in your original episode was when you took that plea deal and you were going in for another 2 years, right? So you already done, was it time served?
When I accepted the plea deal and went to court, I was right at the 3-year mark. And it took another 6 months for sentencing. And then I had to go to Northern State Prison in Newark for a year.
So you did a year after
the plea deal.
So you take a plea deal and you realize, because I remember very clearly, you're sitting in that state police barracks, thinking your life is totally over,
done.
You're just resigned to the fact that you were going to spend the rest of your life in prison. You get that plea deal and you realize you get a new lease on life. Yeah, you got to go through. I know a year in prison, 5 years in prison is no joke. But what did that feel like when you realized your life wasn't over?
It took till my sentencing, but actually, it took to signing the plea deal, accepting the plea deal. Then I knew I was facing 5 to 10. I already had 3 in. So, my lawyer's trying to tell me, no judge wants to be at the low end, so expect, especially in a murder case, expect something towards the top of the 10.
Middle to top.
Yeah. And so he's getting me all pumped up for that. And then, I go to court for the sentencing, and the judge gives me the minimum 5 years and apologizes for having to send me to prison for a single day.
And
on the record.
There was actually a YouTube video of that sentencing where you're sitting there, you're giving your impact statement.
Whenever my mother and father asked me if Dennis Pegg had hurt me, I denied it. Throughout my life, I periodically saw Dennis Pegg around town. Frequently, he was with young boys. In the spring of 2011, I saw Dennis Pegg with a boy who was about 13 or 14 years old at the Quick Check in Newton. I immediately suspected that he was molesting the boy.
And you're laying it all out. You, by the way, you look like a totally different person.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the YouTube videos, like I'm trying to shrink down as low as I can.
Under your attorney's advice.
Just trying to hide myself, I've done a bunch of podcasts and people are like, I don't know how he can speak so easily about, everything that's happened. Well, go look at the YouTube video of me in court. It took a while to, be able to talk about it freely and openly.
Well, that's a good point. Mike, when the first time you talked about your shooting, your incident, what do you remember? I remember because I was there. I was there when he did it in group. You were a completely different person the way you're telling
Like
it.
I said, slouched down at the shoulders. You feel like lesser of a person. You feel those. It's like the demons are on your shoulders and they're just bringing you down.
Right.
It takes a long time to accept what you do, stick your chest out, and say, "Yeah, this is me. This is what happened."
Right.
But when you first talk about it, it's a whole different generation.
When he first came into group, do you remember the first thing I said to you? What I did?
Yeah, you told me you were a landscaper.
There's a reason why. I was embarrassed to tell anybody I was a police officer. I was 30 at the time. I was 40 years old. I'm retired at the time he comes in. And I didn't want to tell anybody I was a police officer because there's that inevitable question afterwards. Wow, you retired really young. What'd you do? Get on when you're 12? And I didn't want to answer that question because I didn't want to talk.
Didn't want to go there yet.
I didn't want to talk. I wasn't ready. So that's why. That's a very important point because that's why I told you I was a landscaper. It was a joke. Obviously I'm there. Everybody knew I was a cop, but it was sort of a joke. But I told a lot of people that, yeah, I'm a landscaper because I just didn't want that. I wasn't ready. But once I was ready, it was a completely different ballgame for me.
Right.
Now,
Now, let me just interrupt before you go on to your next thing.
it's okay. It's only our show. Don't worry about it.
Welcome to the Clark Fredericks
The
show.
Clark Fredericks show. My guests today are Kevin and Mike.
You want to sit over here?
Come on.
So when I'm going to court, the only time I've ever talked about it was to my lawyer and to the psychiatrist. That's it. 2 people. My family didn't know anything. The world didn't know anything. So, I go walking into court and there's all my family lined up in the front row. And I'm going to also be talking about my older brother and what happened to him. And I'm going to be talking about my next door neighbor, Jeff, who committed suicide when I was 17 and what happened to him. And, so everybody's right there. This is going to be the first time they're going to hear my story. They know nothing, so that, that's like, that weight is like, and I got to bring my brother into it and Jeff into it, and everybody's right there. And then every news organization was there. So it's going out to the world, and it's just like, and I was a victim still, the thing I just said, I'm not going to be a victim any longer. Back then I was still a victim.
When you're in jail, when did it start to transform for you?
My second year, my first year, you'll love this. My first year was a complete debacle for me. I was so horribly depressed. And
so if somebody came up and stabbed you, that would have been a good day.
Yeah. I'm having suicidal fantasies. I don't want to spend life in prison. Why,
Well, plus you were an addict at that point, too, right? So now you're going through all that.
Yeah, withdrawn from drugs. I needed a new crutch. I always had, sex as a crutch, gambling as a crutch, drugs, alcohol. And in jail, my crutch became food. And, I just stayed in my cell that first year and just ate the whole shebang chip. Don't ever try a whole shebang chip. It's like cocaine, man. They're so good. You just and I put on at the end of each year you're locked up. They do a little mini physical on you, and I put on 62 pounds in 1 year.
What else are you going to do?
And they sent me to a cardiologist because I was so swollen. I had edema so bad, and. So the cardiologist cleared me, and then my lawyer came in one day, and we're allowed to swear, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
And he's like, we went into the little cubicle room, and he's like, dude, you've become a fat fuck.
Wow.
That's from my lawyer. I go, hey, you don't know what I'm facing here, man.
It's all stress.
Yeah. So
Did you tell him the glass puts on 60 pounds?
And I hadn't been able to work out. I severed all the ligaments and tendons to this hand in the revenge attack against my abuser. I put a knife right through it. And they actually brought in a physical therapist to work with me to get some, movement back in it. And he cleared me, like whatever it was, 7 months in, like you can start, working out. Mentally, I wasn't ready to work out yet. So at the end of that year, I'm like, all right, I got to start turning this around. And I began working out, and I began reading self-help books and inspirational books and reading the Bible and getting faith. And, I transformed my life.
Well, one question I have for you, though, just going back a little bit. Did any of his other victims reach out to you?
Yeah, I've had other victims who didn't come forward reach out to me and just be like, dude, I feel your pain. I owe you an apology, but I just figured he was dead and gone, and I couldn't come forward.
Yeah.
In total, how many victims do they surmise that
my buddy's wife is the sheriff's secretary, and she sat in on all the meetings on Dennis Pegg. And she said to me his victim count has to be well over 100.
Wow. Holy Christ.
I had a guy years ago on Facebook, reach out to me privately. He didn't want to become friends. He goes, I'm not sending you a friend request. Please don't send me one. He goes, but in 1970, High Point State Park had camps. And he goes, my camp counselor was Dennis Pegg.
Wow.
I didn't even know they had camps. And I didn't know he was a camp counselor. So this goes back to 1970 at least, where he was starting. And this guy said, Dennis took quite a liking in me, and you can guess what happened.
You can surmise what happened from there.
And he, obviously by not wanting to be friends on Facebook, he's still wrapped up tight by what happened,
And God, I wish they would live by your example.
Yeah.
Because think about how much better your life has come that you've accepted all this stuff and forgave yourself, because that's why I wanted to bring you in here.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring you in here because the hardest person, I don't know how, you and I have had private conversations about this, is there's certain things in my past that I just cannot get through, and I can't, like, the guy who shot at me, I can forgive him. Okay, I really can. And wholeheartely, I hold no animosity towards him whatsoever, but there's certain things in my past that I cannot forgive. And you've somehow been a voice of reason for me, because you've taught me that you forgave yourself first and foremost.
Yeah.
This wasn't your fault.
Right.
I hate to be Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting. It's not your fault.
Right.
But that's the truth.
Yeah. And people reach out to me all the time, like, do I have to forgive my abuser? And I'm like, absolutely not. Forgiveness is for yourself. When you've experienced immense trauma, you start going off the rails and you start destructing, and that just heaps more shame and blame on you from the way you're living your life. You're just trying to keep your head above water, So if you're doing drugs or prostituting yourself or whatever you're doing just to stay alive, so be it. You've experienced something horrible.
That's his big problem. He prostitutes himself.
So he's bearing his soul, and you're making fucking jokes.
You just became Mike.
It's called role reversal. It's a common podcast technique.
You want to sit here?
So I know when you go out and tell your story, not everybody is in the Clark Fredericks fan club. You ever get blowback?
Well, like I mentioned that post I boosted, that's, and I've gotten that, like on a podcast, you'll have 10,000 comments, 9,998 are great, and then 2 are like, you murdered somebody. I can't get past that. You took the law into your own hands. I can't get past that.
But if it happened to them.
Right. I mean, that's, when you've had a lot of trauma and you're still harboring that, you're very judgmental against, I was a judgmental person because I'm harboring all this crap inside. How could I be a loving person when I didn't love myself?
Right.
It took me a while to be able to love myself. So I was a judgmental person. So it's just like Mike said, they haven't walked in your shoes and yet they want to judge, and it's just, it gets frustrating. Like, dude, did you not just hear the trail of destruction of just how I started the show? Like, go eat poison mushrooms then at age 4 and move forward with all the crap I had to do. And it's, look, you're not going to win everybody over. Yeah. I understand that. But does it bug me? I got to be honest with you. It does.
It's funny though. Like when people say, well, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you either then. If you don't agree with me, I don't agree with you.
But it's
if you can't see my point of view, then there's no need for you to be in my life.
Out of 10,000 comments, it's those 3 or 4 that seem to stick with you, not the other 9,997 that are great and supportive of you. And I think that's the way most people live their lives.
And I've tried to have a dialogue with people who I have no problem. I'll go back and forth with you. But when I confront them, all right, so what's the problem here? Well, what don't you like? What can't you get past? And then it's crickets.
Well, but a lot of times people in that position, what you did is irrational because you've had a life of chaos. So they're trying to rationalize an irrational behavior. You weren't thinking clearly at that time, and if you were, you'd still be in prison. All right? You were thinking very unclear, and they're trying to put their mindset, their rational or quote-unquote rational mindset, onto an irrational behavior. You can't do that. It's not normal what you did. But once you hear the backstory to it, you're like, okay, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, when somebody goes, well, you murdered and I can't get past that, it's like, all right, dude, that's fine. The ones that really get me, I just like, I want to like reach through my phone and just be like, is when they say, well, I would have gone to my father immediately had this happened to me at age 10 to 12. Yeah. I would have told blah, 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 blah. You're a grown adult who's never been through this, and you know exactly how the 10-year-old you, who just got anally raped by a monster, you know how you're going to respond. Are you friggin' kidding me?
I thought we were going to have another moment where my foot goes on the floor.
I'm starting to. I need more EMDR therapy sessions.
We're going to put EMDR back here. The lights are going to come. You're going to get the handles. But EMDR is a wonderful treatment in trying to reorganize that pain that you feel from that stuff, because I'm sure it still triggers you. I hate to use that word, but unfortunately, it's apt in this case. When you go out and speak, is there anything is it still brings you back it's real difficult to talk about it again?
Well, like when I was in studio here, like when I relive the rape, like a grown man, a lieutenant,
supposed to be a man of respect,
pillar of society, is raping a 12-year-old who's screaming and crying, and he just whispers in your ear, just another minute, so that he can make sure he fulfills his fantasies.
And then he beats up his dog after that.
And then beats his dog unconscious in front of him.
Do you know that particular where he beat the dog?
Yeah.
I got just as many comments. Here's a 12-year-old. I'm a big dog.
I know.
They'll all ask the same question. Did the dog live?
I have no idea.
Some kid just got anally raped here, but, and listen, I feel bad for the dog. Don't get me wrong. I got a lot of sympathy for the dog. But everybody's asking me, did the dog live? Yeah. The dog's fine. Okay, the dog's 97 years old right now, but the dog's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the little kid crying in the corner right there. And that's people care. People do care about animals more than people.
Yeah. There's people that latch on. They have an easier time, having a relationship with an animal than with humans.
If the
that
dog,
part's all right.
If the dog jumped up and bit Dennis's neck and ripped the jugular, people would say, "Oh, the dog did a great thing."
Not you,
right?
And the dog accidentally put its own tooth through its own paw. Exactly.
And then put on a state police shirt when the cops came.
So clear the air for our audience right now. The dog did live. Correct?
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
Yeah,
so there you go. The jury's still out.
Yeah.
Ask Dennis Pig. Oh, yeah, that's right. He's burning in hell. So don't worry about that.
Yeah. After, he raped me at his house, and the next time I was in that house was the night I murdered him. So that's a 32-year span, so I don't know.
The dog's not going to live that long anyway.
No, so I don't know.
I'm sure it wasn't the first time he beat that dog either.
No,
Now, you talked about something earlier where you don't always have to forgive your abuser. Being in the place that you are now, coming as far as you have from your former self, is there any forgiveness in your heart for Dennis Pegg?
Nope. Not a bit.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast.
No, I'm a born-again Christian. Mm-hmm. And I've never had any of the pastors come to me and say, Clark, to be a good Christian, you need to forgive that. You need to utter those words. But I've had other Christians who like to think they're a better Christian than me say, you really have to forgive Dennis Pegg, to move on. You need to, why?
You need to forgive yourself.
Who says I have to forgive Dennis Peg? If not forgiving him is adversely affecting me, then we got a story there. But if I can have a healthy, loving, bright life and not forgive him, why do I need to say something just so somebody else can go to sleep that night feeling better? Oh, good. He forgives. He's a good Christian now.
Well, a lot of people will use Jesus as an example. He forgave his accusers, he forgave his executioners, and things of that nature. But I hate to tell you this, I don't know if this is going to be a news shock to you. You're not Jesus Christ. Okay, there's one of them. So it makes perfect sense why you wouldn't be able to, nor there's no obligation to forgive him, because he did this to so many different people. Think about how many lives this guy destroyed.
Right, and let's, one of the things I was going to talk about, since a year's passed, is, and I mentioned, like, when I went into court, I had to talk about my older brother, with Dennis Peg, and he's sitting in the front row, and my older brother is now dead, and I feel that from the grave, Dennis Peg snatched him, because my brother couldn't address what happened. He couldn't move on from what happened. And my brother self-destructed, with alcohol, that did him in. What I witnessed living with him, I was doing heroin, pain pills, cocaine, Xanax, bottles of vodka, smoking weed, Valiums, mushrooms, whatever I could get my hands on, and I got to say, I was in better shape than my brother was with alcohol. It was such insanity.
Well, do you feel responsible in any way?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, because
I opened up Pandora's box.
You outed him.
I outed him, and he spiraled from my arrest onward.
Well, what do you think would have been your brother's savior? If he's spiraling, you were spiraling too.
Yeah, but nobody was going to get me to talk about it either. Nobody knew. Nobody was going to force Clark to. I dated a girl for a few years, and we went to couples therapy. And in couples therapy, she tells the therapist how she was abused as a child. Now you would think, wow, what a segue right into Clark. Come on, Clark, now you can air all your dirty laundry. And I'm just like,
is the hour over yet?
15 more minutes, boy. It wasn't going to come out. I wasn't ready. It would have been a perfect opportunity in that environment for me to but I sealed myself shut at 12 when my mind said, we are never, ever, ever going to talk about this. Talking about it's reliving it, and we're not going to relive it. And that was the worst thing my mind could have done to me, So
a lot of times people forget that you are in a much better place than you were, before Dennis's rightful death. But people have this misconception of people who go out and advocate like you do for victims of child sexual abuse, things like that you got it all together. And it's a huge mistake that people make. It really does. And people think that Mike and I, when we talk about how we overcame our trauma, that we don't still have our moments.
There's still nights I cry myself to sleep.
But that's because I won't give it up for you. Because we're in couples therapy too. But people think that you have it all together. And I want you to tell everybody, because we had a little bit of a discussion, you backslide sometimes too.
Yeah, man. Back in December, I hurt my shoulder lifting, so I lowered my weights. It was still killing me, and I just had to stop working out. And I'm going in, I'm doing the treadmill,
going through the motions
at 3.2 for 20 minutes, Yeah. And so that was December, and then February, I come home and I find my brother dead on the kitchen floor. I give him CPR until the paramedics get there. They work on him, and that just, like I said, you said, do you feel guilty at all? And I felt guilty, I still do. And that sent me spiraling. And then my 94-year-old mother, her mission in life was to keep my brother alive. And that mission came to a screeching halt. So she fell into a deep depression. So I'm coming home, cooking these big meals for her, just trying to lift her spirits, Absolutely. And I mentally couldn't go to the gym. I just wasn't into it. I'm working, and then I'm going home to cook these meals and just eat with her and talk to her and try to cheer her up. And so it was 6 months of backsliding. And I looked at myself in the mirror in May of this year. And just like my lawyer said to me, I was like, holy hell, you fat fuck. You did it to yourself again.
Well, I'm going to surprise you because I think we got a picture. Andrew, why don't you put that picture up of Clark's inevitable backslide down the rabbit hole. But that's how you pick yourself up, because you have to remember what it was like. Because we have very short-term memories. You're in good. Last time you were in here, you were in awesome shape. You were. Oh, look at that! There it is. Look at that.
So there's the before picture 6 months ago. So I went on a tear. I started doing burpees again, and I could barely do 30 burpees when I started. Like winded, dying. I'm doing them in my driveway because I didn't want to do them at the gym.
You didn't want anybody to see you.
I didn't want anybody to see me, but I was determined, to just do them and stick with it. And, now I bang out 300 at a clip instead of 30. And so 6 months later on the right, you see, how I turned it around, and, I reeled myself. Where would the backsliding, how far would it have gone if I didn't reel it in? I have a foundation. I start my day, with wins every day.
I saw your mirror, so you do your accountability mirror.
Yeah, so the people without a foundation, the people who don't have a routine that they do every morning, they don't start with wins, they're the ones who could backslide all the way back.
Keep sliding.
Drugs, alcohol, yada, yada, yada.
Did you ever think during your backslide time,
No.
get a little drink?
No.
Well, that's good. That's a positive thing. That's a win.
Yeah, no, it never, that never entered.
Well, you can't build anything on a broken foundation. You can build the most beautiful house in the world. The foundation shit, it's going to come to the ground.
Right.
Yeah. So you start your day with wins now. Like, give us a win. For an example, what's your win today? Coming to the Suffering Podcast, obviously.
Obviously.
I get up early. I get up usually 4:30.
Rise before your enemy.
Back in May, I pushed my clock all the way till getting up after 6:30, and then just having time to woof some eggs down quick and get to work by 8. So now I get up early. I heard Troy Aikman on a podcast talk about this guy Wim Hof. I was doing.
Oh yeah. I know Wim Hof very well.
Yeah. So I've been doing his deep breathing meditation. You want to call it a meditation? I don't know if it's really a meditation, but it's deep breathing and breath hold. It takes like 11 minutes in the morning.
So read more about Wim Hof. He's an anomaly. First of all, he's a physical anomaly.
Yeah.
But through his breathing, I think he ran a marathon in just shorts, like a full marathon in like 20-degree weather.
Really?
Yeah, because he's able to control his breath.
Yeah. And that's helped me doing 300 burpees at 58 years old. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. So I do that every morning. I eat healthy. It's not like I'm getting up and eating muffins and bagels and so it's just eggs and chicken sausage. I pray every morning. Long stint of prayer. Just gratitude for another day. Happy to be alive. Grateful to be alive. My life could have been over so many times. I could be sitting in a prison,
still
wasting away. Yeah, and I'm just grateful.
It could be something as simple as, hey, you know what? I got enough to make my car payment today.
Yeah,
something very simple.
Yeah, So that's how I start off. Just get up early. That's win number one. Pray. Win number two. deep breathing with Wim Hof. Win number 3. Healthy breakfast. Win number 4. So you set the tone for your day, you know, and then, you know, I hit the gym after work every day.
I got another book for you to read. So it's a book by a guy named James Nestor called Breathe.
Never heard of it.
Oh, you got to this is an amazing book. It'll show you that we most as a species in modern society breathe wrong. I'll give you an example. Like my teeth are all jacked up and I've been a mouth breather my entire life because I broke my nose so many times.
Yeah, me too.
So you would think, go back 700-800 years ago, 1,000 years ago, you would think they don't have dentists, so their teeth are going to be all messed up. Nope. Their teeth are perfect because mouth breathing messes up your palate and it shifts your teeth. So something as simple as that. And then there's sinus infections, and then our allergy counts are going up because we're more allergic because we're mouth breathing. If we nose breathe, it humidifies the air, it filters the air, it gets to your body in the right temperature. Breathe by James Nestor. It'll change the way you think, especially if you're a Wim Hof guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And they talk about Wim Hof in there as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of those books where you read over and over again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this episode is brought to you by Breathe by
James Nestor. So you got a lot of stuff. You got a lot of irons in the fire right now.
Yeah, and you know, and then every morning I wake up to I don't know how many messages are waiting to be answered. You know, so that's that's another thing I do is I'll make posts, social media posts in the morning. I'll answer the messages, and then I'm off to work, and then answer more messages at night. My girlfriend is very. She understands my mission and my goal, so, like you said, a lot of time to the detriment of your family, you're doing stuff, and to the detriment of my relationship, I'm answering, when somebody's like, Clark, please help me. I'm at the end of my rope. What can I do? How can I go watch a Netflix movie with her?
But you
this
say,
person's like
you said,
it's
to the detriment of your family, but it's to the betterment of yourself.
It's that random act of kindness that we talked about. We talked about that on Instagram Live tonight. Just those little random acts of kindness. By you giving your voice to somebody who's reaching out to you in need, you have no idea what that's going to do to them long term. That may just relieve them. Let them last another day, because tomorrow is a new day, and tomorrow it could change everything around. You're almost breaking through to that diamond mind, and most people will just quit.
Yeah, a guy yesterday is like, Clark, my son just died of a fentanyl overdose, and I am completely devastated and destroyed. What do I do? So I wrote him a long message, and I said, at some point you can make some good of this. You can start telling his story in AA meetings, NA meetings. I have a lady by me who I'm friends with whose son died of a fentanyl overdose, and she started an Al-Anon group in my county. I go, maybe you can do something like that. You'll figure it out, down the road, I always tell people I like to recite a line from Psalm 23. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And the valley of the shadow of death is simply the hell our life can take on at any moment. This guy is going through a valley of the shadow of death right now. I went through a valley of the shadow of death 6 months ago, finding my brother dead. But I tell everybody there's one word in that saying that is the most important word, and it's even though I walk through.
Yeah. You're not stopping in there.
Right. I set up camp in the valley of the shadow of death and built a fire and was roasting marshmallows for decades, self-destructing. You're going to hit the skids, realize you're going through a dark period, and then you got to get yourself out of it.
There's a quote I have on my phone, which is pretty much the same thing. When you're going through hell, keep going.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it.
Yeah, exactly it.
But those little nuggets of help that you're giving people, and you're not a trained therapist and help him to get through this. You're just a guy who had a really shitty childhood and a shitty adulthood, and there's some other shitty things that have happened in your life, who got a couple extra tools. But those little things that you give out, they have a way of coming, even though you don't want anything back, they have a way of coming back to you tenfold. You give one little random act of kindness, boy, it comes back to you. And when you really reach somebody and you can tell that they're listening to you, there is no greater feeling in the world where you've made an impact on somebody's life. And I know for a fact that you made an impact on my life. I know you made an impact on Mike's life.
100%.
So
he almost made an impact on my nose that last night too. But
This episode isn't over yet. There's still time. So.
I know he's cocking the gun, and I'm just waiting for him to fire a bullet.
I just got this pen in my hand. I'm going.
So what else you got coming up?
I've been working for 2 years on I signed a deal for a multi-episode documentary with a producer 2 years ago. And just, want to say 3 weeks ago, I got the first episode. And, I was nervous, let's see what happens here. And I got to tell you, I was blown away by it. It was utterly fantastic.
See your life up on the big screen like that. It's got to be humbling.
Yeah, I'm not even in the first episode. Like, my voice is, but it was really well done. And she's supposed to have the other 3 episodes finished, edited this month. So hopefully by the end of the month, I'll have all 4 to review. And then it's off to the streaming service. She has a relative who runs a division at Netflix. So we're hoping Netflix, she saw him at a funeral 8 months ago. And he said, what are you working on now? So she gave him a quick synopsis of my story. And he's like, when it's done, bring it to me. So if the other 3 episodes are anything like the first one, I think we got something good.
And when it comes out, you got to tell us, because we will just bombard everything out.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to have a guest for a third time, but
I was going to say, that would be a first, wouldn't it?
Third time? No, we've had De Palma in here.
We've had De Palma in like 15 times. He's just
De Palma's just he's messed up. No, but all seriousness, you are family. You are a good friend of ours, and we want to see this succeed because not only because we like you, because this story holds a lot of weight. This story, it can really heal.
Yeah.
It has a lot of power to it.
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
Yeah, and like I said, Kevin and I talk all the time about like shows that impacted us. And there's some shows that we said, it was all right. It's content,
Right.
But your show, your episode, your story really impacted both of us. Really did.
Thanks, man.
It really did.
My whole thing is to just get people, stop self-destructing, stop being a victim, and it's tough. It's tough when you've been a victim your whole life to suddenly just flip the switch, but that's what I'm trying to get people to do. And
well, is that your goal with all these projects? Is just to get out of that victim mentality?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the main goals. When you're a victim, it's going to destroy your life. It just
it's time consuming.
Yeah,
it takes over every
and it
thought.
seems like everybody in society's a victim now.
Yeah.
It's your sexual persuasion, you're a victim. Your color, you're a victim. Your race, you're a victim. Your religion, you're a victim. Everybody's a victim. Like, what's it going to do for you being a victim? Like, I don't want to be a victim. I don't want the government to take care of me. I want to fend for myself, and I want to build people up for them to fend for themselves. So. On top of the documentary that's almost done, I signed a book deal with Simon & Schuster and been working. I wrote a manuscript when I was in prison. I hired a editor for the L.A. Times who worked 41 years for the L.A. Times, and he's written several books, and I hired him to turned me from the ugly duckling into the beautiful swan, so...
you still got a long way to go.
You rat bastard. You son of a bitch.
I know. Did you hear that? Ba-boom.
Damn it. I tried.
So the book is, it's almost done, by the end of the year it'll be done. When we're going to publish, I'm not sure.
2024 is going to be a big year for you.
So we'll see.
Do you guys,
those and I do speeches. I got a speech coming up, as I told you guys. For the Sex Crime Officers of New Jersey's convention. Do you remember Elizabeth Smart out in Utah?
Oh yeah.
She's speaking also
Really?
at this convention.
What are you going to talk about?
The Suffering
How I
Podcast.
almost beat the hell out of this guy, Mike, on a podcast.
Yeah, just throw the when you're out there, throw the Suffering Podcast a bone, all right?
Yeah. No, that's cool. Elizabeth's smart. She's you don't hear anything about her, but she went through some. She
got taken out of her bedroom.
Yeah.
At 9 years old or something.
Yeah, and the guy kept her as like a concubine. Right?
Yeah, and then he put her out on the had her completely brainwashed, and she was out on the street handing out religious pamphlets, and somebody noticed her. And,
Well, there's a lot of similarities between her abductor and Dennis Pegg because you almost get like a Marfan syndrome where you start blaming yourself and you start sympathizing with, they destroyed your life. It's not that you think Dennis Pegg did anything right, but you start blaming yourself more than you're blaming the person.
Next to my father, I looked up to Dennis Pegg the most, and again, like a lot of abusers are a family member, the father, the mother. It's not like they're strangers, so yeah, and that messes with your mind. Like you love the person and they're doing stuff and you don't know if, it confuses, is this part of love? And it just makes a whole mess of your life.
That's what it's got to be so confusing. A person that you looked up to and they're doing these things to you. And like you said, that's where I believe the victim part starts right there. You become the victim at that point, but you don't really know you're the victim.
Right.
Is this the way it's supposed to be? I mean, you're too young to even know what feelings are.
Yeah, it's a mind fuck, It just completely mind fucks you, and it takes a long, long time to unfuck you.
It's a lifelong mind fuck now for you.
Yeah, man.
Listen.
I'll be dealing with crap.
Like I said, I'm sure it's an everyday battle to you.
Oh, absolutely, man. I've got an arsenal of information I can share with others. But that doesn't mean I'm healed in any way. I'm a work in progress, just like everybody else is. And I'm just trying to bring them up with me. I might be a one level above them, and I'm trying to get them up to my level. That's all, But I still got many levels to go myself.
I think you're a work in progress until you're 6 feet under.
Yeah, man.
Your whole life is a work in progress.
Absolutely.
Well, when you complete your work, then your mission's over.
What do you do when you climb to the top of the mountain? You go find another friggin' mountain to climb.
It's just the base of the next mountain you got to climb.
That's it, brother.
Now,
I was gonna say jump.
Now, if you could grab Clark Fredericks at 12 years old, who just had this horrible thing happen to them, and you're talking as yourself right now, given the tools and the information that in your life transformation, what do you think you would tell him, that little Clark 12-year-old who just had something awful happen to him?
Yeah, well, I tell people, breaking your silence is the toughest thing to do, but the most rewarding. How can you grow or heal from anything if you can't even talk about it?
Do you think that would fall on deaf ears on a 12-year-old kid, though?
Well, I would tell myself, look, when your father sits you down on your bed and says, "Did Dennis Pegg ever touch you?" Don't be so afraid to tell him what happened.
Because you will now have the burden of knowledge. If you deny, this is where your life is going, and it's not good.
Right.
If you say something, this is the direction your life could go.
And I get teenagers on Instagram reaching out to me privately and telling me, you're the first person I'm sharing this with. And I'm like, all right, well, you're way above where I was at your age. I didn't have an internet to reach out to anybody, so
you didn't have a 20 or 30 year spiral.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to prevent them from doing,
Do you think it was necessary, though, to get to where you are now, that you had to go through that spiral?
I just told somebody, on a post, everything worked out the way it had to work out, including the murder. That doesn't mean I'm saying for the next victim they have to murder their abuse. It's Dennis Pegg should never have had a 40-plus year reign of terror. I should never have killed him. So many victims want to do what I did, and I'm like, I make posts all the time about prison life and jail life because you do not want to go there. It's not a life worth living. I go, you can turn your life around and grow and heal and use that pain to transform yourself and to help others and to do something magical with your life. It doesn't mean because you had this crap done to you, your life is destroyed. And that's what I just try to get through to people. And I go, and if you follow my footsteps, you're done. Your life is done. You're not gonna get a 5-year deal like I got. I had the perfect storm to get my deal. You're gonna do life in prison, and prison is such misery, man. It's just not worth living.
Somebody described prison to me like this. This might not be an apt analogy, but it's a lot like high school. It's because the sex you want, you don't get, and the sex you get, you don't want.
And you say I'm demented.
I didn't say it. I didn't make that up. But I just thought that was something.
But you brought it up.
Now, those people who reach out to you, what is the advice the little advice that you can give them, or little guidance, suggestion?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, that foundation. Get a solid foundation. One, you got to quit drugs and alcohol. Like we got to start there. Find faith. So many people are just, like, when you're abused, it's a faith killer. Especially at a young age, because your little mind will be like, well, what the hell good is faith? How could this just happen?
How could there be a God if this is happening to me?
Yeah. And when I got arrested and I tried to pray, I couldn't even pray. Like my mind would just flood with images of the rape or images of the murder. And I would have to like shake my head to get them out. And I signed up for a Bible study. And I can't pray, and I'm going to this Bible study, and I'm like, man, if this dude is some ultra right wing, religious fanatic wagging his finger at me, I'm going to tell the guards, get me out of here right now, So I had myself all jacked up, and this guy, Brother Bob, gave me a hug. And he whispered in my ear, I've been praying for you, and my congregation's been praying for you. I pull away from him. I go, you know who I am? He goes, I know who you are. And he went in that Bible study. He didn't do Bible study that night. He went in, he started off with God's free will. Now, when I was growing up in the Episcopal Church, it was God was a sovereign God in charge of everything. If you did good things will happen to you. If you step out of line, you incur God's wrath. He was an old minister, and that's how they talked. And then Brother Bob's telling me, God is not a sovereign God. We've all been given free will. Mike can use his free will for evil, as he usually does. and Clark can use his free will for good, as he rarely did throughout the years. But, and good things or bad things can happen to you. And if God's interjecting in every bad situation, we're just puppets on a string.
Then it just becomes normal.
No. It's just...
That's the basis.
We're just marionettes.
That's the basis of faith.
Yeah. So I heard that night, and it released my anger towards God. You talk about, did I forgive Dennis Pegg? No, I don't forgive Dennis Pegg. I forgave God. I had a barrier between me and God from age 12, and that night, God bless Brother Bob, he was able to tear that barrier down for me by talking about free will.
So my Pastor Adam Burt, he did that same thing to me. One day he just said, hey, KD, I'm praying for you. I wasn't in the church. It was just a guy I had on the guest because he was a pro hockey player, in all honesty, but he's a pastor. He says, hey, KD, I'm praying for you. I remember, and he texted to me. I'm looking at him like, who the fuck are you to pray for me? What? And it just ate at me and ate at me and ate at me until finally I show up at church. And when I showed up at church, my initial intention was, who the fuck do you think you are praying for me? Like, seriously, who are you? And then I sat and I listened, and then the rest is somewhat history. So he did his job, just like Brother Bob did his job with you.
Yeah.
So where can we find you?
One other thing quick. We both did Soft White Underbelly podcast, and I did a follow-up on there. But the first time I was on, like, I mentioned just like the Brother Bob story, whatever, and the atheists come out of the woodworks, and they just they mocked me. They scoffed at me like, you've gone from one addiction to another. This one's a fairy tale, though.
Here's another holy roller.
and when I went on for the second round on Soft White Underbelly, I brought it up, and I'm like, hey, like, look, if you want to be an atheist, be an atheist. If somebody comes to me and says, this beautiful red strawberry, when I eat it, the juice goes down into my heart and it just softens me. It makes me feel so good. I just love strawberries. Have transformed my life. Am I going to go to him? You fool! It's a friggin' strawberry. It can't transform your life. No, like if the strawberry transforms your life, God bless you. If my faith has transformed the ugliness I carried in my heart for all those years, if it's softened me and it's brought light back into my being that was so dark, why would you scoff at me for that? Yeah. Let me be bright inside again.
You're taking positive steps, and some people, it's
a lot of people
don't like the positive steps.
Well, people are opinionated too. If you don't think their way, you're thinking the wrong way.
So where can our audience find you?
Yeah, man. I post mainly on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. My Facebook, I've got a business page. The other one's full, the private one. And it's just under Clark Fredericks.
We'll put all those in the show notes as well.
Yeah, so, follow me on Instagram. It's the easiest thing. I've got a website, clarkfredericks.com, and you can punch in, for updates, and I'll update you on the book and the documentary and speeches. If I'm speaking in your area and it's a public event, people can come out.
Hold on if they go see you speak. That's all I can say. Tell them, hold on. And do not make any inappropriate jokes while Clark is speaking. That's the big thing.
Because I'm reliving it, so be careful.
I would love to go there and heckle him. He'd go, Mike's here again.
Yeah,
believe it or not, we're coming to the end of this thing, Clark.
Wow, that flew by.
Yeah, didn't it? Holy Christ.
Yeah. I want to know, I want to ask the same question I asked you at the end of the last one, because I don't know if your answer is different or not. You've gone through this, and it just continued, this suffering called the life of Clark Fredericks. What do you think it's taught you?
I would love to say before the murder, I was, such a compassionate, empathetic person. But again, when your heart's filled with darkness and hate and rage and anger, I was the life of the party, but I wasn't this compassionate, empathetic person. I could be great for a one-night stand, but I was the wrong person for a relationship. So everything's taught me, everything is a life lesson, especially bad things, and that's, I've got a suitcase full of life lessons now. And that's what I just try to share with people. Not everything's going to be a home run that's going to resonate with people. But there's something in my arsenal for every person. And, am I glad I got raped? No. Am I glad I've survived everything so that I can have a message to help other people? Yeah, that part of it's great. I'm here, I'm alive, and I'm going to help as many people with the time I have left.
Your suitcase of life lessons is going to help a lot of people. And that's your purpose now.
Yeah.
It's like a moving truck.
Yeah.
But without all that stuff, as horrible as it was, we wouldn't have Clark Fredericks.
Yeah, I had to go through all the crap.
And I'm grateful for you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks,
with
guys.
us again.
Yep.
I appreciate it. And that's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Forgiveness with Clark Fredericks. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Use pain for construction rather than deconstruction. Messages come through a mess. Jailhouse glass puts on 60 pounds. We all backslide. Everything is a life lesson, but most importantly, you went all through that stuff and you tried to destroy yourself, but the reason you couldn't do it is because you're not done yet. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com for a digital business card. Put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount. Follow us on all social media. That's Twitter, Facebook, Clapper, LinkedIn, Instagram.
OnlyFans.
There you go. Follow Mike at Mike_Failace. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. And of course, follow the Suffering Podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode.